going out. Like we have one, maybe 2 bags a week, that's it. That's because of composting.
Garbage every 2 months.
Oh, God, that's wow. I'm like, really?
Good morning, Mayor. Welcome to the September meeting of the Ulster County Transportation Council's Policy Committee. Call the meeting to order. And I ask Brian if he would do a roll call for us.
Certainly, I'm going to name the municipality. If a voting member present could please state their name. Ulster County.
Ed Pine.
City of Kingston.
John Schulteis.
Town of Saugerties. Leanne.
Is there?
Town of Ulster.
Here.
New York State Department of Transportation.
Sandra Jobson.
New York State Thruway Authority.
Michael Bodett.
Town of Hurley.
Deb Doherty.
Town of Marlborough. Town of Shawangunk. Village of New Paltz.
Tim Rogers.
Town of Wawarsing. Town of Kingston. Town of Esopus.
Here, this is Danielle Freer.
Town of Gardner.
Here, Mary Beth Majestic.
Great quorum. We have a quorum. Thank you, everyone. Item 2 on the agenda, call for citizen comments. Do I have any citizens' comments? No one in the room. Is there any citizens online who would like to comment? Hearing none, any council members in the room would like to comment? Any council members online would like to comment? Hearing none, item 3 on the agenda, approval of the June 24th, 2025 policy committee meeting summary. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
We
Thank you,
believe
Mr.
so
Pine.
moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Pine and a second. Was that Supervisor Quigley?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or discussions? Hearing none, any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you very much. Communications and announcements, Brian.
Thank you. Just to inform everyone, Dennis, as director of the UCTC, submitted a letter confirming that the projects approved in the UCTC 2026 TIP that was approved in June by this body. Confirmed to state DOT that all of our projects were included in the STIP, which is the State Transportation Improvement Program, which is the final step to provide concurrence on the UCTC. So that's great news. Thank you, Dennis. And thank you, New York State DOT. We'll still wait for one final letter, I'm assuming from US DOT, I guess, confirming that our STIP is approved.
Yeah, the next step is the STIP going out for public review. FHWA is going to review the STIP concurrently while it's out for public review. And then usually they do have comments. So then we'll, work with them on addressing any comments, and then they'll send us a letter approving the new STIP. So, I mean, typically that happens in November, December timeframe.
Thank you. Yeah, he's up. Another announcement we sent out yesterday, you should have received it around the UCTC mailing list, that FTA 5310, which is a funding opportunity for transportation and operations for the elderly and disabled. That opportunity is now open with a deadline later in November. The Kingston urbanized area generates somewhere in the vicinity of $280,000 available, I believe. $295. Thank you, Chris. And we're also eligible to apply for funds that are generated through the TMA, which is closer to 800,000, somewhere in that vicinity. So there is significant dollars available for transportation, specialized transportation that provides specific services to the disabled and the elderly.
And it needs to be in accordance with the county UCTC's adopted coordination plan, just so everybody recognizes that.
That's right.
It's not any project, it has to be in accordance with that plan.
So please review that opportunity. The email did go out yesterday. There's a training seminar scheduled for Thursday. I suspect DOT will post those recordings as well. So if you missed the Thursday opportunity, there's one right now as well, or at least it's scheduled for some time today.
11 o'clock.
At 11 this morning. So if we speed things up, you can still make that. But there's also a very detailed handbook on the 5310 program, and UCTC staff working with New York State DOT and the other NPOs in the TMA will review those applications. And then finally, an announcement we received from the town of Lloyd. Town of Lloyd is engaged in conducting a Safe Streets for All plan for the town. This is a systemic crash analysis where it examines history of crashes throughout its jurisdiction and normalizes those crashes based on the amount of volume on local roads. The purpose is to identify areas that have an unusually statistically high crash rate, and it can go into great detail regarding specific crash types at specific locations. The purpose is to identify those locations that have those high rates and then promulgate steps that can mitigate those high rates of crashes. So that planning process is underway.
Thank you.
They have a consultant on board. This is a US DOT grant that they received to do this work. They have scheduled a public meeting that's scheduled for October 6th from 6:30 to 7:30. That's a virtual public meeting to learn about the project. So if you have the time, I would encourage you to attend. I'll circulate the flyer for that meeting. And I should note that several weeks ago, the UCTC, along with some other municipalities throughout New York State, received correspondence from US DOT. We also have submitted a grant proposal to the same program to conduct very similar work, but countywide. And we did receive, I would consider it to be encouraging correspondence, and that they wanted some clarification regarding our application. So we were able to provide that.
With overlaps, right? There were concerns about overlaps.
Jurisdictional overlaps of us, the city of New Rochelle, town of Mamaroneck, and New York State Thruway Authority, I wanna say.
And Bridge Authority.
They did tell us last week that we're in the clear now. We improved what we're not even the town of New Rochelle and others.
Right, right. What they wanted specifically was some level of proof or commitment that we are coordinating with all those other agencies as necessary, and we were able to provide that. And then finally, regarding communications and announcements, Village of New Paltz is moving forward with its sidewalk project. I don't have the pin off the top of my head, but it's a sidewalk project that was awarded quite a few years ago, and they've made it through design. And I believe you have, or are very close to having design approval from DOT.
I think so. Yeah.
You're right on the cusp of that. Mayor Rogers did send correspondence to me indicating that they would require an additional $96,000. There's a shortfall of $96,000, which I believe would go to the phase for construction inspection, and requested if we had additional federal aid to provide toward that project. We do have carbon reduction program funds, which would be eligible for that project, which is a sidewalk reconstruction project. So it would be an 80-20 split. And we calculated that $77,000 in our holdings in carbon reduction funds could be provided as an offset. It would still require an additional $19,000 commitment from the village for the local share. This is for everyone's information. I think the director is in agreement that those funds can be made available. Any questions or comments? There's no specific action is required from the committee for transfer of those funds.
Any other questions or announcements, Brian?
Those are all I have.
Moving on to new business, item A, Mid-Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area Federal Certification Process. I know that we have a federal representative, Gala is on the call with us. I know, Brian, do you want to take this and bring it to Gotham, or Gotham, you want to go first?
I'm happy to introduce Gautam Addy. He is our representative from the Federal Highway Administration. Every 4 years, as we announced during the August meeting, UCTC and the other MPOs in the transportation management area, Dutchess and Orange, are required to undergo a full review of our metropolitan transportation process. All of our products and plans are reviewed by a team of the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. So we've been preparing for this certification review all summer and setting up the meetings and organizing the spaces and getting the dates on the calendar. The first meeting will be an all-day affair scheduled for this Thursday, beginning at 9:30. We'll be attending in person at Orange County Community College in Newburgh. And then there will be follow-up meetings with each individual MPO, and UCTC's meeting is scheduled for Monday, 6 days from today. So with that, I can give the floor over to Gautam.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for the introduction. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say at the start that even though this is a federal process, we really value and benefit from all of the cooperation from the MPOs in this process. We couldn't do a certification without the MPOs, diligent preparations and arranging logistics and getting things out like the public comment form in such a timely manner, which I'll get to that. I also wanted to note that Ray Tomczak, your liaison from the Federal Transit Administration, is also able to be on the call this morning. So Ray, definitely, I'll provide a little bit of an overview, but feel free to chime in as well if I miss anything here. So Brian already talked about sort of the basis for this process. I just wanted to note that the federal team always goes through a detailed risk assessment, looking at topics that maybe we didn't cover in full during the last certification review, topics where there are maybe some concerns, and also topics where we think there might be some best practices to share. So as Brian said, the certification review consists of the federal team reviewing documents, and then we have a site visit with MPO staff and members involving a discussion, and ultimately we produce a final report with our findings. The certification for the Mid-Hudson Valley TMA expires in early April 2026, and we fully anticipate being able to deliver a final report before that date. The reports usually have recommendations for improvement in the transportation planning process, commendations that recognize best practices either on a state or national level, and corrective actions where regulations may not be met. So I just want to note at the start that the Ulster County Transportation Council did address our corrective action from the last certification review that had to do with financial planning, and all of that work is reflected in the financial plan for the long range, for the new LRTP that you all are scheduled to take action on today. So wanted to note that at the start, and thanks to Brian, Dennis, and other UCTC staff for addressing that. So this cycle, we're doing a little bit of a new format where we do part of the certification review in person, as Brian said, on Thursday in Newburgh, and then we'll do individual sessions with the MPOs, each of the 3 MPOs over half days next week. And so for the certification review, just going through a little bit about the topic areas, there's going to be a pretty significant focus on safety, both at a TMA-wide level and how the MPOs collectively are addressing safety, but also the work that each of the individual MPOs is doing with their safety action plans, and a lot of the safety action plans that are being done individually by members of each of the MPOs. So that's a huge focus, and as part of that, there will be a discussion of the active transportation work that UCTC is doing and the other MPOs. We will cover the status of the Connect Mid-Hudson study that dealt with transit improvements and sort of any progress that the MPOs have made on implementing recommendations or refining recommendations from that study. We will discuss the congestion management process and intelligent transportation systems and operations and potential opportunities for the MPOs to have a greater leadership role there in coordination with NISDOT. And we'll talk through the regional freight planning efforts that have taken place throughout the TMA. And the individual MPO session that, as Brian said, will take place next Monday. We'll really focus in on the core products, your long range plan, your TIP, and your UPWP. We look forward to discussing your new LRTP, and also how the development process went for your most recently adopted TIP. And then there's going to be really focused this time on how the UPWP helps inform future capital projects, and how the planning process that you go through in the UPWP is how our TP goals are helping inform the entire process of consideration of studies and projects. And we'll look at opportunities to implement planning environmental linkages where the MPO can help to jumpstart project development. And I think one thing that may be different if you participate in the individual MPO session from the past is I think we're gonna you'll hear us discussing these products sort of together and not having as distinctive sections, because these products all go together as part of the planning process. So I'll just reiterate that the certification review is always an opportunity to identify ways that FHWA and FTA can assist. And right now, as you're probably aware, it may take time for us to deliver any kind of technical assistance, but we're still asking the MPOs and MPO staff and members to consider ways that we might be able to assist. So don't hesitate to bring those things up as part of this process. And another thing I'll reiterate is that it is not the cert review is not just about the staff. Brian, Dennis, and Chris do really tireless work to deliver the MPO's program, but those of you who are voting members around the table, and even advisory members, are the ultimate decision makers for the Ulster County Transportation Council. And so this is an assessment of how the transportation planning process in the whole Mid-Hudson TMA area is working, and you all play a vital role in that. So with that, I think Brian noted the public comment form that is out, and that is an opportunity. We open that up to members as well to use that to give feedback, feedback that will be kept anonymous. It'll only be shared internally with the federal team, and we'll only contact you if you desire to have a follow-up discussion with us. But we did want to use this opportunity if anybody had any feedback. This is another forum to potentially give that. Just overall assessments of how the transportation planning process is going. These can be good things that you found to be exemplary with the Transportation Council. Certainly identify things that can be improved, and I recognize that this may not be the forum where everyone feels comfortable giving that kind of feedback to the federal team. So again, we do have that comment form. You're welcome to contact me or Ray to give further feedback at any time. And yeah, I will leave it at that to start. I certainly have other things I could discuss, and I'll open up to questions, or Ray, if you had anything else you wanted to cover as part of this.
So Ray, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I think Adam did a very thorough job of going over the overview of the process, and just like he said, I know it can get a little bit scary for a lot of MPOs and TMAs, when we undergo this process, but just know, as Gautam said, we try to work as a collaborative partner with you all, with the DOT, and really just seeking ways to enhance the transportation planning process to be as best as it can possibly be. So, we're here to support you guys. And yeah, like you said, we did the risk-based review, and just initially, it doesn't look like there's anything major that came up from that review. So yeah, we're just going to be continuing going through the process, and feel free to reach out to us at any time if any of you all would like to talk offline. But thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Gautam. Much appreciated. And I would encourage council members at this time, if you have any questions or comments that you want to make, now's the time to make them. anyone online? It's a quiet bunch today. I mean, usually we have all kinds of questions, so, but thank you again, Ray. Thank you, God, much appreciated.
I just want to draw members' attention to the agenda electronically. There is a link to the questionnaire form on the third paragraph. You can find that form. And this was sent out to all members electronically as well through our mailing list. So if you do have comments, you can submit them in writing. And members are welcome to attend the day-long session. And if you are interested in attending remotely or in person, please feel free to contact me and we'll provide you with that location information or the link.
So thank you. We're moving on to item B on the under new business, the UCTC resolution, 2025-12. Excuse my voice. Adopt the Ulster County Transportation Council year 2050, Mobility 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. Rather than take a resolution, I'm going to have Brian go through the plan, and then we'll I'll take a resolution to adopt.
Sure. So if you were in attendance at the August meeting of the UCTC Technical Committee, we went through a detailed presentation. I'm not going to go through the entire presentation at this meeting. I would like to note that we did 2 public meetings in August presenting the topic of the Long Range Transportation Plan. One was held in Kingston and the other was held in Ellenville. And we did get fairly decent attendance and comment from those meetings, and those meetings were recorded and are available on the UCTC YouTube channel if you are interested in viewing that. After we held our public meetings, we did advertise also the meetings, but the availability of the document and indicating that it was open for public comment through September 5th, so nearly a month. UCTC operating procedures actually do not require a set public comment period like our transportation improvement program does, but we do think it's important that the public is aware and given an opportunity to review and provide comments. So we were happy to do that. At the conclusion of the public comment period, we had quite a few comments, which I'll go through today, and we did make some very minor revisions to the document. Chris, if you could fast forward on the PowerPoint to nearly the last slide. I probably should have put these new slides in the beginning, but. So as you can see, it was a pretty comprehensive presentation on all elements of the document. Perfect, right here. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we did have the public comment period, and all comments are summarized in Appendix H of the document. We now have 7 separate appendices in this, what is now a 260-page document that sets the planning horizon to 2050 and includes all the goals and objectives of the UCTC in the document. We did, as I mentioned, make some minor changes based on those comments, and those are shown in track changes in the document. I'm just going to walk through them with everyone right now and pass that around. On page 51, we just made a very minor revision to the language regarding the state of bridge replacements in Ulster County. Page 53, one of the more significant comments and biggest revisions that we made to the document, a member of the public was very concerned that we didn't specifically mention the use of the leading pedestrian interval technology, which can be used in traffic signals to provide pedestrians a few seconds lead time when crossing the street. It's considered to be a best practice in transportation traffic engineering for signal design. By giving that pedestrian just a few seconds to lead into the intersection, it allows them to get a head start, and all motorists typically will then see them halfway across the intersection and then wait for them to complete their movement. So we added a full section explaining what LPIs are and clarified that we do recommend them and have recommended them to specific planning projects such as Kingston Broadway and the Clinton Ave project in Kingston, and elsewhere on the Route 9W project in the town of Ulster. So that was a great addition, but really not a significantly major change, however. Page 81, we have a safety project spotlight, which explains the Broadway streetscape project, what that project hoped to accomplish, that we did the conceptual plan in 2015. Then, of course, the city of Kingston implemented the findings of that plan through a transportation enhancement project. The spotlight shows a 10-year crash history on Broadway, and it's a pretty precipitous decline in crashes. We're very happy to show that. The question we received from the public was, are these just vehicular crashes? Are they all crashes? Are they specific to bikes and peds? The illustration shows all crashes. So it's vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians, and other, if there's anybody captured through a mobility device that may have been hit. So all crashes were captured in that illustration on page 81. So that's added. Page 82, just a minor, I think that was a typo to the text. Page 96, one comment we received from a resident of Kingston who lives on Washington Avenue indicated a really great comment that even our garbage travels more than it needs to, indicating that where he lives, he watches all of the refuse going through the city on its way to the thruway and large semi trailers, and notice that there's a significant impact in terms of garbage odors at his residence, and also litter that results on the highway. So we were definitely agreed that that is an impact of the transportation system, and added it to our specific section on transportation and the environment, that litter and odors is a potential impact to the transportation system. And then finally, there is another minor revision on page 111. And of course, all of the comments that were received are in the very final appendix H. We include the comment, not only those that were submitted in writing, but those that were voiced verbally during the public meetings. And we have a response, how we feel the LRTP responds to that comment, and if we needed to make a change. Those are all indicated in the table in appendix H. So those are the only changes made to the document since it was approved by the UCTC technical committee. And we would request at this point, final approval of the resolution approving the 2050 LRTP for the next 5 years.
So I'm asking for motion to approve the long-range transportation plan as amended through public comment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Rogers. Do I have a second?
Supervisor Quigley seconds.
Yep. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion from the council members? Hearing none. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice work, Brian.
Mhm.
And staff.
One down. Yeah.
Item C, UCTC Resolution 2025-13, amendment to the 2023-2027 UCTC Transportation Improvement Program. And New York State, a new New York State DOT project PIN number 8LC231. Discussion, Brian?
Sure. All additions or projects to be removed from the Transportation Improvement Program require technical and policy committee approval, as well as 15-day public comment period. We advertised an amendment as shown here for 15 days in Hudson Valley 1 and Ulster Publishing, and there were no public comments received. The amendment is to the existing Transportation Improvement Program. So that covers 2023 to 2027. That tip is only valid for another 2 weeks, beginning October 1st, or as the STIP is approved.
Yeah,
Then the new, I guess when the STIP is approved, then the 2026 tip will take effect. So this is a project that New York State DOT, hopes to, move into, execution, as soon as possible, hence the request to amend not only the existing 2023 tip, it's already included in the next transportation improvement program. So this will allow DOT to, obligate funds on these culvert projects. Do you have anything further to add regarding the project or locations, Sandra?
No, I mean, I think you have a good description here. But if anyone has any questions,
Route 213, Route
Think there's-
299.
2 rehabs, 3 replacements.
Culvert work.
Yes, all culvert work.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the amendment? Mr. Fine, I have a motion for Mr. Fine. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, did I miss something?
Nope, that's it.
Wow. Item 6, other old business, project updates, Ryan.
Sure. The Ulster County Area Transit Route Optimization Plan, as you may have seen some articles in the paper recently, we are moving forward at a rapid pace toward completion of the route optimization plan. There are 2 key benchmarks that we have in front of us to wrap that planning project up. I just received an overview of our final recommendations from the consultant yesterday. I've not had a chance to review them, but we will first meet with our technical advisory committee to present those recommendations to them to receive any input. And then we will schedule our final public meeting with the public to present the proposed new routes to the public, and that will likely be scheduled for the end of October. No date determined at this point in time. The purpose of the route optimization plan was to re-envision UCAT's fixed route transit in Ulster County to try to identify opportunities to create efficiencies throughout the system, a system that grew up relatively organically over time and then merged with the Kingston City Bus, had not fully been examined in over a decade. So this was an opportunity to review ridership data going back many years, really get solicit input from riders and members of the public, what they like about the system, what they don't like about the system, what they would like to see changed in the system, and then just crunching all that massive amount of data to develop some recommendations for some new routes. All the areas that are currently served by Ulster County Area Transit will continue to be served under the new routes, but the routes do take on a different structure. And they're detailed through right now, the draft routes are shown on Participate Ulster. What we'll be showing are the final draft routes later on in October. This is a conceptual plan. It's really up to Ulster County Area Transit and Ulster County government to put forth the recommendations and implement the plan. So what we've created is a strong concept that we feel would serve the riders and the residents of Ulster County into the future and serve them well. We assumed an increase in overall available funds, but also in passenger hours and revenue hours of 30%. So this would be an increase in service throughout the county by a total combined amount of 30% if the system builds out completely to our recommended amount. That would be an increase in budget as well, which has been addressed by the Ulster County Legislature through the bed tax, that there is now a designated revenue that will be provided to Ulster County Area Transit from the bed tax that was approved in 2024, I believe. So that is a revenue-based new it's a new source of revenue that's based on consumption. So it's gonna vary year to year, we know that, but it is additional revenue that's been designated. And so that presumably is where the increase in budget would be acquired from. So we're looking forward to presenting the new routes, and also along with those new routes, there are detailed schedules accompanying them. But again, how the routes are implemented is 100% on Ulster County Area Transit. We're going to provide the concept for moving forward, and we hope that Ulster County Area Transit will have everything they need to implement this plan, hopefully at some point in calendar year 2026.
There is an implementation plan that's being submitted along with this. So there is an implementation plan. It's not like, here it is, good luck implementing. There is an implementation plan how to go about this. Anticipation is that this is a 3-year, and a minimum of 3-year implementation, both in terms of organizational structure, capital equipment that's needed, as well as human capital as well.
Are you able to make your consultant working on, are you able to make them available to UCAT, right? That would do the implementation. Are you able to make them kind of available for like follow-up technical support?
Not through the current contract,
Okay.
but I'm certain that our consultant Foursquare ITP would be interested in answering questions and providing that assistance.
And there's an ongoing discussion in terms of budget about how to implement this. And the county's budget is due out next week, the week after next. It's October 1st, I think it's 5 days.
No, is there an update on, you know, the increase in facilities, the new bus garage,
That's in the capital program. I can't give you an update on that until the capital program comes out. It was in the prior capital program, so one would presume it's going to be in this capital program as well.
But facility needs are not addressed through this discrete planning project.
Any questions?
So we look forward to really presenting quite a bit of information to the public in the weeks ahead.
So Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot. We finished a major project with respect to the long-range transportation plan. Priority for the next major plan that we're doing is?
Yes, Christopher and I have been working diligently on developing a scope of work to do a corridor management plan for Albany and Ulster Avenues in the city of Kingston and town of Ulster. That draft scope of work is nearly complete. I just was reviewing it yesterday. We've got it really close. It's a slightly different approach than we've taken with other similar projects. So we'll be convening the town and the city and New York State DOT staff to talk about that scope of work to make sure it meets everyone's needs. And then we can issue an RFP to do that work. Beyond that, we have 2 pending US DOT grant applications. One is for a Protect grant, that is a resiliency plan that we submitted back in February. Those awards have not been announced. I did hear rumor at the time that the program would be discontinued by the current administration, but that wasn't the case. But they have not announced that award. The other one we already mentioned is our Safe Streets for All USDOT grant, which would do a systemic crash analysis countywide. That would be an update to our 2019 plan. That is a priority. But we're waiting to see if we receive federal aid. If we don't receive those grants, we're going to do that crash analysis with our own planning grants that we have.
Reduced. It'll be a reduced effort.
Right. And then finally, the 2050 long-range transportation plan identifies an active transportation plan as a high priority. I personally feel that's a high priority. We've received applications from individual municipalities to do their own active transportation plans. These are plans that take a comprehensive look at bicycling, walking, and other non-vehicular modes of transportation and identifies safe mechanisms to implement them, not only at the municipal level, but at the county level. So it would look at our trails network, but also all the facilities that we have in Ulster County that make it easy to travel by foot or by bicycle, but also the inhibiting factors that prevent people from wanting to use those modes. So an active transportation plan, I think, there's a lot of need and a lot of purpose for that. We don't have that programmed right now in our planning, unified planning work program, but I would likely include it in next year's UPWP.
Okay, thank you. And Chris, I'm going to ask you about your traffic count program.
Yes, the counts have been completed. Right now, we are waiting on the consultant to do their data verification before they send it to us, so that we can also do our QA QC on it, and then it gets uploaded to NISDOT. Haven't heard anything that has gone poorly. We've also notified the county through Facebook. I myself don't have a Facebook account, but Brian explains to me that there is mixed reactions to there being cameras put across the county in now 90 locations. So I can't specifically speak to any of those individual ones, but at least there was notification out there, and looking forward to getting the data back so we can upload this with the state and continue on with our count program. So
we didn't receive any questions from municipalities or the public.
No, minus the one that time. Everything has been okay so far. I believe it was from Woodstock with the comment from Woodstock. They asked about whether the cameras were, I want to say it went to you rather than me, but.
Right.
But otherwise, no one else has reached out to ask any questions about the cameras or anything. I think letting the county publicize it out there is probably pretty helpful, especially because we put pictures up of what these things look like. They're different than the tubes across the roads. I guess they look a little bit more ominous than otherwise, than they otherwise would, but I think it was.
They're easy to miss. I mean, it's a pole mounted, looks about the size of a digital camera, essentially.
They're on bird feeders, honestly, those bird feeders on a pole, but.
I know people did think that they were speed cameras.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you for that update, Chris. Brian, I'd like you to just update us on the meeting we attended with respect to Woodstock and that project from DOT in Woodstock.
Certainly, the New York State Department of Transportation has had on the Transportation Improvement Program for some time a very significant bridge project. There are 5 small bridges on Route 213, Tinker Street in Woodstock, that are slated for complete reconstruction. They're easy to miss. They're small bridges, but when you do see them and the structures there, they're clearly getting old and up there in the years. So this is somewhere in the vicinity of $27 to $30 million reconstruction project. As part of that, the DOT did pledge to provide pedestrian improvements on Route 212 for the town, which the town's Complete Streets Advisory Committee has been very interested in, and has been acting sort of as a interested party with working with the DOT and the town board on that issue. So Dennis and I had a meeting with members of the town board, the town supervisor, the Complete Streets Advisory Committee, and DOT's project manager, Mark Kruk, who's happened to be the designer of the Kingston Roundabout. Great guy to work with, to go over some of the questions and details regarding what sort of improvements could be made. The former regional director, Lance McMillan, did receive a request from the town to build a side path all the way out to Bearsville as part of this project. And he said, while the resources did not exist through that discrete project to do a side path, which would be, I think, roughly 5 miles from the town center out to Bearsville, that they would do designs for the town. And those were presented, preliminary designs for a side path on Route 212, which would be on the southern side of the state highway. There would be significant costs involved in full build out of that effort, but having a preliminary design as well as a pledge to assist with right-of-way acquisition and analysis by the DOT, I think, is a huge benefit to the town that really puts that project one step closer to reality. Other details regarding the project involved whether a side path, which would be the width varies, but it could be anywhere between 8 to 12 feet in width, would be a multi-use side path that bicyclists and pedestrians could be use together. The Complete Streets Advisory Committee is very interested in having a facility like that included as part of the project. The designer, however, is concerned that there is a lack of space to implement something that aggressive.
It was an interesting discussion to see that the community and the department thinking about how to balance lack of right of way, elimination of parking, potential elimination of substantial amounts of parking, and then also the loss of quite a few very large, not more than a few
Trees, yeah.
the tree commission also being concerned about that loss as well. So it's a challenging environment to work in, given all of those those constraints, but there's a significant opportunity as well. So it was they're going to come back with some alternatives. Very interestingly, the town has actually hired its own transportation planner to look at this active transportation and to participate with that. And that's been, I think, a real help to the town, not only and to the department as well, and have the town understand what's being asked in greater detail, and then also have the department to interface with the department in a professional manner.
That's right. It was a very interesting discussion. I think everybody appreciated the generous time that New York State DOT provided in trying to develop solutions. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a great investment in Route 212 in the town. I think the end results are going to be fantastic. They may not meet everyone's immediate concerns, but I think the pledge to provide those designs long-term are going to be very helpful.
Anything else, Brian?
No, we covered the certification review begins Thursday. That's an all-day affair for us. And the next Traffic Safety Board meeting is scheduled for October 6th. Those are held at 6 p.m. on Monday in the Ulster County Government Building.
Thank you. Any additional comments or under old business for council members? Mr. Litz?
Yeah, can we get an update on the off-system bridges? And how much funding is left out of that 12.6 million?
Sure. Sandra, if you wouldn't mind while I look up the PIN, do you know if New York State DOT will be issuing a Bridge New York call anytime soon?
I don't know, sorry.
Almost there.
So, Mr. Litz, would it be okay if we provided that offline to you?
I have it right here.
Oh, got it, Brian?
Hold on. No, I don't.
No, that's fine.
STBG. Block program for off-system bridges. UCTC has in savings for future programming, $7.2 million. That's total dollars. That includes the local match as well. So on the federal side, that's roughly 6 million.
All right.
And in the projects that were selected, were they in the process?
You would have to ask the local sponsors on those, but they would be working through state and local agreement with New York State DOT.
We talked about issuing a request for proposals.
I think the STIP has to be adopted too first.
Okay.
So I would expect early next year.
Okay.
They'd start kicking off the state local agreements.
Okay.
For UCTC's new projects.
Don't call them, they'll call you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Dennis,
Is that Mary Lee?
Mary Beth,
Sorry.
yeah, I just think I want to make a comment since I have the DOT here. I brought this up years ago, but with the increased e-bike traffic coming out of the Wildflower Resort on Route 4455, when you head east and you hit the bridge over the Walk-Hill River, the bike path is, well, it's not a bike path, but the shoulder it's prohibiting people to stay on the side of the bridge because there are obstructions on both sides, little guardrails. And people are now going into 4455 to come across the bridge, which is really quite dangerous. And these are people that come up from the city. They're not used to the speeds that people travel on. And I think it's an accident waiting to happen. And I'd like somebody to take a look at that, please.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Just as an aside, under New York state law, e-bikes are not permitted on roads where speed limits are over 30 miles an hour.
Okay, maybe I should let Wildflower know that.
What about regular bikes?
Regular bikes are motor vehicles under the statute, but somehow when they amended the statute and recognized e-bikes, they basically gave them a special category and they're actually not permitted on roads over 30 miles an hour.
Well, we got both bikes, regular and e-bike, so
Yeah.
if someone could take a look, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Deb, you-
Yeah, if it's okay, Mike asked me to bring up a few things, and I actually want to bounce off the Complete Streets Woodstock discussion. So in Hurley, our safety committee also worked with the Woodstock Complete Streets, and we also passed the Complete Streets. So we're really focused on bikers, pedestrians, and vehicles, right, having the ability to travel on all our roads in Hurley. So in July of 24, we put forward 3 resolutions. One was to lower speed limits for our school zone in Myers, which we did actually just get approval to lower. We asked for 15, they lowered it. DOT gave us approval to lower to 20, which is great. So we're going to be working on that. But 2 of the other resolutions, one is to lower the speed limit to 25 on all our roads. That was rejected, as well as lowering the speed limit on 209. We got a rejection, which basically says that people are already speeding. It's in the 85 percentile, and so therefore they will not lower the speed limit. So basically, as Mike puts it, we're rewarding people that speed and not considering safety. And part of the issue, and this is specifically what I wanted to bring up, is we talked about the rail trail. So we have the rail trail that runs all along this section that we asked for. 3 entrances, which are very dangerous. One of them has a blind entrance on the Esopus, going across the Esopus on 209. So we pointed out all these things just a few weeks ago. I'm also in the fire department, so I'm a first responder. We responded to an accident smack in the middle of this section, which we talked about, a head-on collision. The car ended up maybe 8-10 feet away from the rail trail, and debris strewn all over the rail trail. And this is what I pointed out in this resolution, is that the danger of, we've had multiple collision, accidents where they go right across the rail trail. So obviously we're gonna fight this a little bit and try to, go back and say, please reconsider, especially in light of the new. I know the county is coming forward and talking about putting some speed signs along this section of 209, but, in reality, we're really looking for speed reduction before we have more, not only fatalities from vehicles, but also, potentially pedestrians and bikers that use the rail trail.
Thanks, Deborah. Anything else?
Nope.
Any other council members have anything they want to bring in front of them?
I just have a question.
Mayor?
So on our main street in New Paltz, where it's 35 miles an hour, e-bikes are not permitted.
Technically, that answer would be no.
I also have a question too. So we have this intersection on a state road with a traffic signal, and our engineers working with DOT to update something, but we've got a bunch of complaints about how it's like a voice system and buttons, and it's not really working well. And I've heard it from a few different people. Is there anyone from DOT who can just go and see what's going on, and if there's an easy fix, which there never is, but
Yeah.
maybe it's who can I contact to go look at?
Well, you can definitely send it to me and then
Okay.
I can make sure it gets
Perfect.
in the right location. But I
Okay.
would say whenever someone has an issue, depending on your relationship with the local New York State DOT office, the residency, that's always a place to start. They can also just like myself, help navigate, to the, who, and then also, I work in the Poughkeepsie office, that's also the regional office. You can always send stuff directly there.
Yeah,
And
I
then
know
it
we're,
gets funneled to the right department with me. I mean,
yeah, we're in the midst of updating some technology in terms of like a camera or something that
Yeah.
it's like part of our water main project. But I've gotten these other odd complaints about how it's like super unintuitive right now, or something seems to be off.
okay. Yeah, no, they can definitely go
Okay.
out and take a look at that. Okay. And
Anything
you
else,
have my
Mary?
contact information. Yeah, okay.
Anything else, Mick? No? Anybody online have anything? Hearing none, next meeting of the Ulster County Transportation Technical Committee is scheduled to meet on October 28th, 2025 in this room, begins at 10 o'clock. Look forward to seeing you all here and some of you online, and we stand adjourned.